Hello everybody and welcome back to the third day recap of Starladder iLeague Season 2. In the first series on day 3, we have Fanatic versus Digital Chaos. For game 1, DC had a really good start to the game. However, they weren't ahead enough to mess up an early draw ranger push that we usually see very early into the game, which allowed Fnatic's core to split push and keep hitting farm. And Fnatic's moment finally came at 27 minutes when they found DC at the top lane. Mushi tanked so much damage and destroyed DC with his ultimate, and to top it off, he was able to get off safely as well. And with DC not being able to kill anyone on Fnatic's side, they had no choice but to retreat. However, that's kinda hard to do against a bad rider, and Fnatic got a huge surge of momentum into the game as they almost fully team-wiped DC. A few minutes later, notice Fnatic support's positioning as another huge fight occurred. Weeha had no choice but to solo epicenter Mushi. However, it turned out poorly as DC could not kill him once again. So it looks like HY was right all along. Hiding in the trees is the way to go. After winning another great team fight, Fnatic had full control to the game, and they did not give DC any chance to come back as they eventually took game number 1. In the second game, DC picked the Ursa core, which is something we've only seen from Secret, who's been constantly running in this tournament. But DC proved they can do well with this hero in the lineup as well, as once again they had a great start in the game, but this time they didn't give Fnatic any chance to make a comeback. They were able to split up the teamfights into 2 locations, and Weeha kept Melwan busy, who is a significant part of Fnatic's DPS early game. And everyone else from DC was able to take care of the other heroes. From here on, DC was able to take game 2, and we head to the final deciding game. In game 3, it is Fnatic this time who had an early lead in this game, as you can see from the scoreboard as well as the net worth chart. DC was able to scale out this Fnatic smoke gank, and they decided to smoke themselves and fight into Fnatic head on. However, a great zoning Chrono Spear from Ohio allowed Fnatic to split out DC's heroes as they easily took this teamfight. And with such a huge lead early on, Fnatic was able to take the final game in 26 minutes and advancing themselves to the next round by knocking out DC. In the next series, we have Friends going up against Evil Geniuses, and EG's lineup for game 1 was very interesting and greedy to say the least. First, they have Sumail and Oracle as mid lane core, and I guess after the Axe upgrade being added to Oracle, if you can farm an early Axe on him, he'll have crazy amount of burst. Well, in theory anyways. And second, they have Zai on the farming Timbersaw, and Universe on the jungling Beastmaster, which means that PPT will be basically playing a 6th position 1 protect 4 support. The game tempo was pretty slow as both sides was content to farm. And EG, somehow with their weird lineup, was able to do some damage to Friend's base earlier in the game, as you can see on the map. However, once Friend's carry of Slark and Ember came online, the teamfights became too difficult for EG, as only Juggernaut has the same amount of farm as them. And even though EG got the Aegis there, this was a huge win by Friends, as they team-wiped EG and they took game 1 shortly afterwards. In the second game, EG once again picked something very interesting. They had Sumail on the mid-core AA, and PPT dueling with them to secure his farm. And somehow, someway, EG made the lineup work. I don't exactly understand how, as this is one of the weirdest Dota games I've seen in a while. I guess it honestly has a lot to do with Universe on the Void, since he did so much work early on, as he went around and helped the other lanes. And also his Chrono Spear plus the AA ult is a great combo when they connect, because anyone that was caught in it was pretty much guaranteed to die. And as for Friends, their lineup was pretty straightforward. Get Luna farmed and group up and push behind her. However, even though the Luna did get very farmed, everyone else on their side was kinda poor. So right here, I think this was a pretty big miscommunication by Friends, as IO should have just relocated the Luna just a tiny bit back instead of going all the way back to the base. But since they did go back to the base, there was no way Yoku should win on the Bad Rider, because it was basically 2v5. And on top of that, IO even relocated Luna back, despite everyone else being dead on their team. And with that, even though EG drafted a pretty weird lineup, it did work out for them in the end, as they were able to outplay Friends and tie up the series 1-1. And for the final deciding game, it actually turned out to be an epic base race in the end. And I have made a highlight on my channel, so you can check it out there. But a short summary of what happened is basically EG had a really good early game, and they were up 1 barracks here at this point. However, Friends was able to hang on, and once the Alchemist got 6 slotted, Alchemist just became too difficult for EG to kill, kind of like the Secret vs DC game yesterday. And EG had to resort to some rat Dota to make Friends go back to their base. But Friends handled their lanes very well. They didn't allow Radiant Creep to get near their base at all, which means that they had the backdoor protection on the entire time, and there was no way EG could have won the base race. So in the end, Friends was able to take game 3 and upset EG by knocking them out of the tournament. And I'm not sure what to think of EG at this tournament, since their draft this series was very wonky. Maybe they're just trying to figure out some new strat for TI, but let's see if they can show some better strat than what we saw here at Starladder. Otherwise, I just can't see the defending champion do well at TI with their current form. And in the third series, we have the winner bracket final between Navi and Team Secret. In the first game, Navi picked the Naga carry, which is not something we see from Navi, since they usually play the more aggressive fighting lineup, and Naga Siren is the exact opposite of that. But it's still nice to see Navi showing some diversity. And as for Team Secret, they pulled out a Razor pick, who we have not seen that much as of late in the competitive scene. And Arteezy, who was one of the best Razor players back during the TI4 era, once again showed the power of this hero. He was able to be the frontliner and tank up all the damage for his team, as they slowly siege down the enemy base. Even though Secret was up 2 lanes of barracks after this push, Navi still showed some resilience, since they were able to hold on for another 10 minutes. However, in the end, it was no use, since the Mega Creeps was too much for Navi to come back from, as Secret was able to take game number 1. And now we move on to the second game, which was a pretty close one. At this point you see here, it was actually a very even game, and Navi was able to get a quick pick-off on Oracle, but Emmy's positioning was perfect, as he was able to stay behind the tankier heroes and freely DPS down Navi. And once Navi decided to jump on Emmy, he was able to kite them around with a Ghost Scepter, which allowed Secret to take the teamfight convincingly, as they were also able to secure Roshan, as they won the teamfight right next to the Roshan pit. And the following base push, Secret had the Aegis, which was crucial for the Storm, because it allowed him to play very aggressively. The teamfight coordination from Secret was spot on in this engagement. Abaddon and Oracle was able to protect the Drought Ranger on the backline, while the Axe and Storm was able to go ham on Navi. The fight became very scrappy towards the end, as everybody was so low, but Secret was able to edge out a win as they took game 2 a few minutes later. And they closed out the series 2-0 and will await the winner of the lower bracket to challenge them in the grand finals. And in the last series of day 3, we have Friends going up against Fanatic. In game 1, Friends looked great in the early game. All 3 of their cores had a great start, and Savan reached his power spike very early, and he was able to solo kill Fnatic's carries easily. However, once Fnatic started playing more tightly, they were able to successfully kite and outlast the Savan. And since Friends was not able to finish off Fnatic during the mid game, which is when Savan was the strongest, the game became more and more in favor of Fnatic. And eventually, behind mid 1's insane Ember play, Fnatic was able to survive game 1 and took a 1-0 lead. And in game 2, the first few minutes in the game didn't look very good for Fnatic, but this mid play here I think completely changed the pace of the game. Terrorblade was able to survive on 36 HP and get a triple kill at 11 minutes, and this began his snowball, and we all know how scary a TB can be when he snowballs. And everyone else on Fnatic's side played a fantastic game as they were able to secure a game 2 victory at 31 minutes, and move on to a lower bracket final where they will face Navi. And with that, this concludes the Day 3 recap for Starladder iLeague Season 2. As usual, please consider subscribing to my channel if you enjoy my content. There were many awesome moments from Day 3 and you can check them out here from these links. Thank you for watching and I will see you next time.